Uncle, the farmer thought the wild horse was just lost. Then he saw what she was trying to show him. Narrator: Walt Kessler, 48. Give me a second here. Long exhale. Okay, there's a horse standing out at my east fence line right now this morning, and I need to tell you what she did to me because I've been a coward about this for about 30 years, and I'm done. I'm 48 years old. I buried my father off that same tree line. I built the biggest cattle operation in 3 counties, and it took a broke-down mare with a bad hip and no owner to show me I don't actually know why I did any of it. Not one bit of it. I thought I was chasing land, chasing yield, chasing bigger. I was chasing something with no name, and I got so good at the chase that I never once turned around to see what was really chasing me. That horse turned around, 3 days in a row, and I finally understood what she was doing. Here's what I think she was trying to tell me, and it took me till I was almost 50 to hear it. You can spend your whole life running towards something you think is out there, some finish line, some version of yourself everybody finally respects. And the whole time, the thing you're actually starving for was never past that fence at all. It was standing right where you already were. I'm going to tell you about a horse, but really, I'm going to tell you about my daddy and about myself and about how a wild animal figured out something it took me 4 decades and a broken marriage and 1 dead father to even begin to understand. So, my mama left when I was 9, just gone one Tuesday, and my daddy never said a word about it. Not that day, not ever, not once in the 31 years he had left on this earth. He just got up the next morning and worked. 4:30, dark still, out doing chores like nothing happened, and I remember standing in the kitchen doorway in my socks watching him and thinking, okay, I guess that's what you do with a hole in your chest, you just go to work. And here's the thing, nobody tells a 9-year-old boy, I didn't learn work hard. I learned something way more dangerous. I learned that being useful was the only language my father spoke, and if I wanted him to look at me, really look at me, not just past me, I had to earn it. Every fence I mended, every calf I pulled at 2 in the morning, every A on a report card, I was pitching it at him like a coin in a well, waiting to hear it land. By 19, I'd made a decision, and I didn't even know I was making it. That's the part that gets me. I decided I was going to build the biggest, most respected farm in this county, and then in the next county, and then the one after that. Because somewhere in my gut I believed if I got big enough, loud enough, successful enough, my daddy would finally say the thing, 4 words. I'm proud of you. That's it. That's all I was building 400 acres for. I didn't know that then. I know it now. So I chased it. Lord, did I chase it. I bought land I couldn't afford at 26. I borrowed against land I already owned at 31 to buy more. I worked 80, 90 hours some weeks, planting, carving, harvest, bookkeeping till midnight. And I told myself this was for my family, and some of it was, but if I'm honest, mostly it was for a dead conversation that was never gonna happen. My daddy died when I was 40. Heart, sudden, out by the barn, and I got there 11 minutes after and he was already gone. And I stood over him and I remember the very first thought that came into my head, and I'm ashamed of it. But I promised myself I'd tell the truth here. My first thought was, now I'll never get to hear it. And then, this is the part that should have been a warning sign and wasn't. I kept going, kept building. Like maybe if the farm got big enough, his ghost would say it instead. By 45, I had it. Biggest operation around, name on the co-op board, other farmers calling me for advice, my picture in the Farm Bureau newsletter. I remember standing in my own equipment shed looking at 4 tractors I owned outright and feeling nothing, just this flat, grey nothing. My wife and I were sleeping in the same bed, like 2 strangers sharing a hotel room. My son wouldn't return my calls except on holidays. I had built the whole entire thing, every acre of it, and I was standing at the top of it, feeling like the loneliest man in the state of Ohio. That's about where the horse comes in, if you're wondering. She showed up on my land last spring, no tags, no brand we could find, and she was limping on that back hip, and I figured she'd wandered off from somewhere, and I figured I'd fix that fence, patch her up, and she'd go on her way. But she didn't leave when the gate was open. She kept coming back to that same busted section of fence, standing there, staring through it at nothing I could see, 3 mornings running. And on the 3rd morning I finally walked down there slow, and I looked where she was looking, and on the other side of that fence, way off across Halbert's back pasture, there was a small herd, maybe 6, 7 horses, just grazing easy in the morning light. And I understood. She wasn't lost. She knew exactly where she belonged. She was standing at the edge of it, right at the threshold, and something in her, fear maybe, or just plain exhaustion, was keeping her from crossing back over, even though the gate was wide open and nobody was stopping her but her own self. And I sat down right there in the wet grass in my barn coat, and I cried like I hadn't cried since my daddy's funeral, because I realized, that's me. That's been me my whole entire adult life. Standing at the edge of belonging to myself, to my own family, to my own peace, with the gate open the whole time, refusing to walk through it because some old wound convinced me I had to earn my way back in. Here's the thing I finally understood, standing at that fence, and I want you to really sit with this one. I never wanted the land. I never wanted the biggest operation in the county. I wanted to matter. I wanted to feel like I was enough, worth something, worth staying for, worth a man's pride even when that man was gone in the ground. And that feeling, belonging, being enough, I kept treating it like a prize you win way out there somewhere, past the next 400 acres, past the next good harvest, past the next milestone. But it was never out there. It was never something my daddy could have handed me, even if he'd lived to be 100 and said those 4 words every single day. Because that feeling doesn't come from outside a man. It never has. It was sitting right here in my own chest this whole time, waiting on me to stop running long enough to claim it myself. That's the thing about chasing worth from the outside. It's a horse chasing its own herd's shadow, instead of just turning around and walking home. You can own every acre in the county and still feel like an orphan standing outside a fence, because the ache was never about the acres. And I did the exact same thing to my own son, just wearing a different coat. Jake's 22 now, and for years, I confused giving him things for being with him. I bought him a truck at 16 instead of showing up to his baseball games. I offered him a partnership in the farm at 20 instead of ever once asking him how he was actually doing, in his heart, in his head. I thought if I handed him enough, land, opportunity, a future all laid out, that would say I love you loud enough that I wouldn't have to say the actual words, because nobody ever said them to me either. And Jake, God love him, finally sat me down 2 years ago and said, "Dad, I don't want your acres. I wanted you at the games." I didn't have a thing to say back to that, not one word. Because he was right, and it was the exact same mistake. Mistaking an external gesture for the internal thing he actually needed, which was just my attention, my presence, plain and simple. I got 2 friends I think about a lot these days, side by side, like 2 roads. There's Ronnie Halbert, owns the place next to mine, and Ronnie is 61 years old, and still, to this day, cannot have a single conversation without telling you his yield per acre, his newest equipment, how many head he's running now versus last year. Ronnie's miserable. You can see it in his face at the co-op meetings. That hungry, comparing look, like he's still 9 years old trying to get somebody's attention. And then there's Earl Whitfield, retired now, gave half his ground to his kids after his wife passed, and Earl sits on his porch most mornings with black coffee and a transistor radio. And I asked him once, wasn't he sad giving up all that land? And Earl just laughed and said, "Walt, I already got everything I was ever trying to get from it." That man is the most at peace human being I know, and he owns less than anybody I know. Here's the mechanism of the whole trap, plain as I can say it. You cannot fill an internal hole with an external achievement, because the hole was never shaped like land or money or a trophy or even your daddy's words. It's shaped like belonging, and belonging only ever gets built from the inside out. Chasing it from the outside is like trying to fill a well with a bucket that's got no bottom. You can pour your whole life into it, and it stays just as empty as the day you started, because the water's just running straight back out through the hole that was never in the bucket. It was in you. So here's where I've landed, standing at 48 years old at a fence line with a horse who taught me more in 3 mornings than 50 years of church and self-help books ever did. You don't have to earn the right to belong to your own life. You don't have to build an empire to deserve your own father's pride, especially not a dead man's pride. And you sure don't have to buy your children's love when all they ever wanted was your eyes on them at the ball game. The gate's open. It's been open the whole time. Whatever fence you've been standing at, staring through, telling yourself you're not quite worthy enough yet to walk back through, I'm telling you, from a man who wasted 30 years standing there, walk through it. Nobody's holding it shut but you. If there's somebody in your life still standing at their own fence, a father, a brother, somebody chasing the wrong thing for the right reason, send them this video. Don't just think about it, actually send it today. And I want you to answer me something in the comments, because I read every one of them. What's the fence you've been standing at, telling yourself you're not quite ready to walk through yet? And if this landed on you the way that horse landed on me, hit subscribe, because I've got a lot more of these old mistakes to unpack. And I figure the least I can do with what I learned too late is make sure it gets to you a little earlier than it got to me.